to our great friend, Chris Franklin from NJ.com, joining us now here on Birds 365. Chris, welcome to the show, man. What a great game yesterday, 55-23, Chris, and we're headed back to the Super Bowl, my friend. How you doing on this Monday morning?
I was doing fine, so I heard the comment that so many kids are going to say Saquon.
Saquon.
What,
I
the
don't.
white
Yeah, I don't
babies?
think that's the
Yeah,
case.
Hugh
But
Douglas
the
tweeted
white-
that, Chris.
yeah.
I was cracking up
That
last
still
night.
has me.
Yeah. I'm not going to go. Maybe 2K say. How about that?
Mike, Saquon?
2K say.
Saquon?
It's like George
Sounds great.
Costanza wanted to name his kid 7 for Mickey Mantle. So maybe
Oh,
we can go
goodness.
2K say. 2K say. I'd
Not
like to
bad.
introduce my son, 2K say. How's that, Chris?
It's like the Ladasha with an L-A hyphen show. I remember that, like, hey, I remember that one before. So,
Like
yeah,
an
I just
Elon
consider
Musk
that.
name. What's the name of his kid? XAE and all. What is that crazy name he named his one kid?
No
Did
comment.
he? I don't know. I missed
Oh my
that.
God, you've never seen that, John? You'll
No.
get a kick out of that. You got to look
No,
up the one
no
name.
comment.
All right, Chris, what'd you think of the game yesterday, man? 55-burger in the NFC Championship game. Jalen Hurts, I thought his best game of the year. They're answering all the critics. Chris, what'd you think of the game yesterday, man? Big NFC Championship game and the second Super Bowl now in 3 years for these teams.
That was the most complete game this team has played all season.
Yep.
By far. And I thought you look at the way offensively, the way they were able to methodically move the ball down the field in both the run and the pass, using both to set the other one up, which I thought was very, very key. You saw some aggressiveness from Nick Sirianni on that fourth down call when they threw the ball to AJ Brown.
AJ. Love it. That changed the whole game around, Chris.
It was great. And then defensively, you look at there were some holes that got stretched out a little bit in terms of the fact that you look at Jaden Daniels and the way he's able to change some stuff. So that there. And then special teams, aside from the fake punt, which that has to definitely be cleaned up because Andy Reid's will look for something weird off of that. You look at the way they're able to force fumbles and get this team into good field position. So overall, it was a really great. To me, this game was a disappointment, not from the Eagles. I thought the Commanders would actually put up a better fight, and that was just
that didn't happen. Although Jaden Daniels, I thought was great. I really do. I just think, boy, that secondary. Too emotional. I'm talking about the Washington second. Too emotional. They just had a really poor game. I mean, guys were running wide open. What was the plan on that back? I mean, on paper, pretty good corners. Not in reality. They had both of them had really, really poor games.
Yeah, I look back now at that trade that the two teams had during the draft. To me, the Eagles got the better end of Cooper DeJean. Sinister, I know he's still developing, he'll still be a good guy, what have you. But in moments like this, you need to keep your calm. You can't be hitting people. You can't be doing like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you look at that, and he just seems flustered. And for all the talk, the defensive court, Joe Witt Jr. is a really good defensive mind. He really is. The fact that he didn't come up with a better game plan than the way they had last week. Why would they put in single high seat? For the life of me, still do not know. With this offense, I know you don't want to put 2 back because you got to worry about the run game. But at the same time, there's other things you can do than having one single safety and giving man on man with. If you saw Marshawn Lattimore and the way AJ Brown was abusing him the week 16, why are you having him singled up 1-on-1 again? Okay, I think
on
it's
fourth down, nonetheless, Chris.
Yeah,
on fourth
exactly.
down.
It's some of the things. I have so many questions about it, but yeah, it's crazy.
How about the crack toss to set the tone of the game? I think about the mentality of, Washington gets the ball first. They grind it out for 18 plays. They get 54 yards. Everything's difficult. They convert 2 fourth downs. And then for some reason, they're facing a 4th and 3 at the 16. And Dan Quinn all of a sudden goes back to, Atlanta Falcons, Dan Quinn. I'll take the points. I'll kick the field goal. And after all that, they get a 3-0 lead. And boy, the take the points people had about 10 seconds to enjoy and bask in their glory because crack toss, Saquon Barkley, 60 yards to the house. Right there, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long day for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, it felt like one of those, like we were watching an MMA fight or whatever. And you got the guy who's beating him, waiting for the ref to jump in, and then it's like the fighters goes, "Okay, I'll back up and let you guys back up. I want to continue have this continue." Like, what if Dan Quinn was going to be aggressive on those first two calls? Why not go for a third at that
Makes
point?
no
Because you set the
sense,
tone.
man.
And at first, usually I'm more conservative in terms of that. And as far as at a time like that, but the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, you just let these guys, this guy, you could have just emotionally, from an emotional standpoint, you go up, if you continue to drive, you get the first down, you get the touchdown, all of a sudden you quiet that crowd and you got the Eagles thinking a little bit. Now they're coming off seeing like what happened, that long drive, and it's a win with a field goal. You get the fact, of course, it's a win.
Yeah.
They're reinvigorated, and then we saw what happened after that. So Dan Quinn did a great job this year with the Commanders, got them way further than anybody thought they should do. But when we came to the big games, we've seen what's happened in really big games in the past in terms of decision making, what have you. And that shot of him on the sideline where he's just like, "What's going on? What just happened?" Encapsulated that whole entire time that he had with some of the decisions made yesterday.
No doubt about it. Chris, what'd you think of QB1, Jalen Hurts, yesterday, man? I thought that was a big feather in his cap to be able to do that on the biggest stage of the year. Obviously, a lot of talk this year about whether he's carried or whatever with the passing game. And I get it. I understand every conversation, but I thought it had to feel good for him. And I thought he played his best game of the year. How'd you evaluate Jalen Hurts yesterday?
Whatever he took to make his leg move around the way he did, I want some of that because that thing was just like walking around. It's like, good
Wait,
Yeah.
can
deal,
I ask you
amazing.
both, was that gamesmanship to wear the brace and then take it off right before kickoff like that?
There's some times there's been times he doesn't like wearing a brace at all too. It's just I think I don't know if
Yeah,
it's a feel
he
thing.
kept
Yeah.
he kept biddling with it pregame.
Yeah,
So
I was
maybe it was
wondering, like, maybe he was wearing it to, Joe Witt's thinking the whole time he's not going to be able to run, and he looked pretty explosive to me. He didn't look like it was much of an issue.
Yeah, there's been
I
time.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You go, man. You go, man.
I think in the mentality of like that's not a coaching thing. That's like when somebody's banged up, that's more like Bobby Wagner, Frankie Lubu got to
Right.
figure that out on field if he's got mobility, if he's not, because you can't know that unless you're a player. So that's up to what you feel on field. Chris is right. He doesn't like wearing things like that. And he did spend an inordinate amount of time pregame, like fiddling with it, trying to get it comfortable. So I don't know. I don't know if we got to ask that question because I had to go up and do the post game show. I don't know if you were there, Chris, but
I left before it hurts. You had to go run something else.
yeah, he certainly looked fine. I'll say that.
Sure.
And the most impressive part to me, to be honest, was he threw the ball with conviction. Like that's when Jalen Hurts is clicking. Like when he trusts what he sees and he throws the ball with conviction. He's tough to stop. And we haven't seen that all year, but we saw it yesterday.
And the main thing, like we know his decision making has been good. Obviously, the zero interceptions in terms of that, in terms of the playoffs, stuff like that. But you look at the way they mentioned the ball placement. He's decisive. He got the. I mean, we've seen the pressure, and everybody talks about, and you hear him saying, "Well, if he's pressured, you can't get him. He's not a great quarterback, what have you. He's safe with the ball. You look at the completion percentage and the ratings, what have you. It's been really good in terms of that. And then you look at the way he's talking to everybody, like the way he communicates in there, the way he's not phased in terms of the thing. He played one of his best. I think the Steelers game to me was his best game of the season. This might be the second best in my opinion. The way just the overall in terms of what was on the line, the way he just held himself, and the way he throwing the ball, flinging that ball around. Yeah, you want that Jalen Hurts to play the Chiefs as opposed
Yeah.
to somebody else.
By the way, that because we had this discussion with Jeff before he came on about blitz. Like, what quarterback is better with pressure? Like, who's the good quarterback with pressure? Like, where is that guy? Well, at some of these times, some of these narratives, I just shake my head.
Well, some of them just can't handle. Some of them just like
No, some of them are worse, yeah, but
Josh
you know,
Allen's really good shocker. I know, especially if you look at even with that lob throw that he threw that he should have caught. But
he
yeah,
should have
you know,
caught
look
it.
at that.
Yeah, but
Some
that's desperate. That's a desperation heave. I mean, that's
I
not. And you're right. Dalton Kincaid should have caught it, but that's desperation. I mean,
it,
the point is, if you're pressured, There's not much you can do as a quarterback.
I think when I look at the way of it depends on your system and what you have inherently scheme, because that's why I think Bobby Slowick got fired from the Texans. And we noticed we heard last year so many times with the blitz, they didn't have an answer because especially if you could see where these guys are coming and you feel the pressure, like double A gap, good luck. That's where it's really tough because
Right.
Mike Zimmer,
you have
baby.
too. That's really tough.
Mug it.
Any other thing? Any other thing I see where that? Oh, I know he's coming there. If I checked the right line or I did my preparation beforehand and we were all on the same thing, if I see him come from this way, I'm calling like a linebacker come that way. I'm calling a slant or a tight end behind the head with drag it, and I'm hitting him with that.
No,
I'm
well,
like,
yeah,
please
yes.
blitz me.
I didn't mean to say that. I meant like obviously there are certain quarterbacks that deal with pressure better than others, obviously. But doesn't matter from Patrick Mahomes on down. They are worse when pressured. Nobody's better when pressured. That's all, which is a weird narrative that I hear all the time. So anyway, if Jalen Hurts plays like that, Kansas City's going to have a really difficult time in the Super Bowl. But we were having an interesting discussion on which team is better, this Eagles team or the team that won after the 2022 season. And I think a lot of people default to this team is better because of Saquon, because of Vic. But the one thing I will say, people forget how good Zander brought up Quinyon versus James Bradbury. People forget how good James Bradbury was that year, second team All-Pro. But more than that, people forget how good Jalen was that year. That Jalen was the runner-up to the MVP, and deservedly so. We haven't seen that Jalen, but we kind of did see him against Washington. Does that give you hope?
I think Jalen's all there. Just to think when you have Saquon Barkley right behind you, I think that really does enhance what he's able to do. Like you don't have to, this team didn't have to throw as much as they usually do because usually, like you see, like when they ripped off those 60-yard runs, it's like, all right, yeah, let's try it again. I think it's still there, and the numbers may not look reflected like that one, but I still think he's there. I think we saw it yesterday too, and I look at that and I'm thinking, you know what? I think we see it show it again, especially with the week. That like when they have the bye week, this bye week came at the best time for his team. I think especially for him as well too. He's gonna be another week removed from that knee. I think he'll be even more decisive. He's familiar with this defense already. It may look a little different here and there, but he's seen it already. He's seen it 2 straight years. He'll see it this in the Super Bowl, and he'll see it next year when they play him again too. So he's familiar with that one too. Sure, the Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo is going to have some different blitz packages. He's going to have time to think that up, but I think he'll still be able to do stuff against that. So I think I still feel confident that he'll be able to do that. I feel confident enough that the threat of Saquon Barkley along with him may stop some of those different pressures that have happened. It's one of those things where I know Spagnuolo, I think they were before yesterday's game, something like they were blitzing 40% against the Texans or something like that. Where I haven't seen the new numbers that came out today for that, but it might come to a fact where he might even blitz even more just to try to stop the run blitz even more, just try to stop Barkley. If that happens, I think Hurts. We've seen his ability to audible out of those plays where he sees where the pressure is.
Yeah.
Also get them out of there. I think they can hit some big plays not only in the run game but also the passing game too. So
Looked like that first play. Looked like that first play, Chris. Jalen checked. It almost looked like he checked out and then checked
out and then checked back. It was
that's
the call.
It
was the original play call, and he checked back to it.
Yeah. So good stuff there by Jalen Hurts. Chris, I asked John this, and we talked about it with Jeff Kerr as well, and I'll get your take on it. How do you think the experience from the Super Bowl 2 years ago helps or affects this team in their preparation for this Super Bowl? I know you got some different players, but Nick's there, Jalen's there, there's AJ's there, Devontae. There's some key players there. You think that Super Bowl 2 years ago helps this team? I'll give you a couple quotes from Jalen Hurts. I didn't walk through the fire just to smell the smoke. I think he means I'm learning from everything here. I think it's going to help him. What say you?
I think it will too, especially I think that first time you look back now, it's like one of those like, wow, we're here. We were down. They expected they're the one seed. They expected as the season went on. You're like, okay, yeah, they're going to go, and we saw what they did San Francisco. But it's one of those things like, yeah, all right, we're here, and we can play with these guys. I think now there's like one of those things like, okay, we've been here before. We know what we've done. We know what it takes to win. let's limit the, let's just go from here on out. And I think that that first thing, and especially the fact that they lost in the manner they lost that first time, I think that's going to help out a lot in terms of this new leadership group they have. You still have Wayne there, you still have BG there that are still able to like, hey, listen, they've been through the fires before, 17, 22. You have those, but that new middle core, like where you have Hurts, you have Smith, you have Brown, those guys have seen that. They're like, okay, we know what it takes to win in Super Bowl in this level. Let's go and do this, like, and they can help into that too. So I think that especially the manner and the way how close they got and the team that they get to see again, and they really really like, I think they really feel more comfortable this time and also dealing with all the off the field stuff. I mean, the ticket requests that are going to come, the weirdness that come
Yeah.
media night with the hey, I have this weird hat,
All
wear
the
this, all that stuff. So
all
they're
the international media asking goofy questions about yeah,
two players who should. Oh, never stop. That was yeah, sweet.
yeah,
Yeah, it started last week already.
yeah, it did. It did. Who was that guy? I don't know. Chandler's like, who?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's it. Yeah, it was just
uh,
weird.
yeah, weird week. Spags, you mentioned Spags. This is an it doesn't even matter because it's Vic Fangio versus Andy Reid, and it's Spags versus Kellen Moore. But better DC, the great
Ooh.
Spags, or the Godfather himself, Vic Fangio.
I look at there's one thing I look at as well too. I take the tree into account. And you
Yes.
look at the
Well, if you
tree
take the
that Fangio,
tree, it ain't a
Fangio's got to
fucking
buy a
yeah.
lot. It's buy a
Fangio's got to
lot.
buy 1,000,000 miles if you take the tree.
But then I also look at the big games. You look at the Super Bowls, the right calls at the right time.
Yep.
Oh, I gotta go just off of that. If you go off of production itself and everything else, I gotta go Spagnuolo right now. Right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Right now, I take
Vic's,
Spagnuolo.
Vic's my guy. By the way,
Vic's
Vic,
one big. Vic's that's tough.
here's how cool Vic is. You know, we're in the locker room after the game, and Gilly, the kids in there, and everybody's celebrating. Everybody's taking pictures of the NFC Championship trophy.
Yeah.
Jalen's got the victory cigar. Vic had already left, and he walked up and he saw me and gave me a little dap, and that was it. And I said, "Congratulations!" And he was off in the sunset.
Yeah, I saw it's funny. He's coming down like right before, like I think it was like it was like the game had just ended. He's walking down with his briefcase, goes to the locker room, like, oh, he's not gonna celebrate. Well, then he goes back real quick, and then he's the first person back coming out off the field. And we're like, all right,
Yeah.
I've seen this. All right, let's
Has
go.
Vic ever been here? Has Vic ever been to a Super Bowl? No.
He was a consultant with the in 2022.
Yeah, he was a consultant with the Eagles in 2022. People forget that he was helping. And by the way, he was helping the offense. He was not helping the defense.
Which is interesting because he was the coach of Denver, which means he's obviously dealt with the Chiefs twice a year. You know, so he's familiar with them. Now they were a different team at that time, but still,
he knows.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I haven't talked. And you will hear Andy talk glowingly about Vic Fangio. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Chris. Any other key takeaways from that game, man? It was a pretty wild one. I thought the defense, though, Zach Bond continues to play lights out. Jalen Hurts was obviously great. We talked about him, but what else jumped off the page at you on that 55-23? I guess we could call it an ass beating. You put up 55 points in the NFC Championship game. That's an ass beating.
All-time record.
Yeah, all-time record.
I think a couple of things in terms of that. Look at Jordan Davis. The fact that he got that, you don't think of Jordan Davis being a pass rusher. You look at the way that was a key moment as well too.
Yeah,
Him being able to chase down, of all people, Jordan Davis chased down Jalen Daniels. That itself I thought was big. You look at the contribution you got from all your rookies, from all the rookies that pretty much were dressed for that game. Yeah, all started with Quinyon with the interception, Hoop with the coverage. You look at Jalix Hunt, who still continues to be part of that rotation and makes impact. I think he had 4 tackles yesterday in terms of that as well, too. And then Will Shipley, when he finds the enemy, he had to step up in terms of when
Will
Gainwell
Shipley
came back.
Will Shipley almost took one to the house.
Yeah, that was, you see all the impact that he did, and I thought that was fine. I think Kenneth Gainwell will be fine afterwards. So I saw him walking back before the celebration locker room, had a big smile on his face, ready to go. So I think he'll be ready. I don't think it's probably, I think, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to throw this out there, but I think today's an important day to watch to see this. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, he got a concussion, but it's nothing like where you got to worry about his availability in terms of the Super Bowl. So I think he'll be ready as well too. So those are just three things: the rookies, Jordan Davis, and Kenneth Gainwell. I think those are three
Yeah,
guys.
what a rookie season for the Eagles, by the way. Starting with Quinyon Cooper, but also just little contribution, as you mentioned, from Will Shipley. You also had the forced fumble. Jalen Hunt turns it. We all thought Jalen Hunt's going to be this developmental guy, redshirt him. Now he's playing big snaps in the NFC Championship game.
Johnny Wilson too. You got him
Johnny
on the
Wilson
outside
again.
with the blocking. Yeah. There's so many things that you look at. It's like, this team's good. Like, you look at just the key pieces, and you look at the defense, how young it is, and where their key pieces are at. They're good there. Offensively, this is young. This team, I really think when we look at this is just the second of 3 Super Bowls we're seeing between the Eagles and Chiefs. I think we're really seeing like this is the second one. I think we'll have a rubber match sometime in the next 2-3 years, because this Eagles team is just deep and they're young.
They're young, man. They really are built to. I mean, who's saying they can't go back in the next couple of years? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Obviously, we got a big game in 2 weeks, but there's no doubt this team is set up, and that's a credit to Howie Roseman. This team is set up for sustained success as long as everybody, nobody falls off a cliff. Jalen doesn't fall.
Well, it's got to be Saquon, though. I mean, Saquon, at least if they play like this, that's what I mean. All right, here. Saquon has accounted for 40.2% of the Eagles' scrimmage yards this season entering the Super Bowl. That's the 4th player in history, 4th best, behind Marshall Faulk, Raheem Mostert of all people, and Marshawn Lynch, and then Saquon is 4th. He is the first rushing champion that would, if they win, that will play for a Super Bowl winner since Terrell Davis in '98. Interestingly, because of break Terrell Davis's record in the Super Bowl. Been a long time. To have that wrong, but they're very Saquon centric right now. Nothing wrong with it. They've gotten to where they gotten them. But when we start talking about long term and them going back again and again and again, I think you might need a little more balance, Chris Franklin. Yes or no?
I think you just redistribute it, and I think that's part of the plan too. Like, if this, because we know the toll that these carries are taking on his body, and he can do anything. Like Derrick Henry, like, he still is among the best. He's still massive. He's doing really well. But if you look at Derrick Henry now versus Derrick Henry about 3-4 years ago, it's a little bit of a little different.
No.
And
Derrick spends $750,000 a year on his body.
Yeah,
Saquon probably does similar, to be honest.
It's around there, yeah, with all the trainers and the pay and the food and all that stuff. Yeah, it's up there. But I think it's one of those things where I think I think you account for that when you sign into a contract like this. You account for it. You're thinking on the back end. And you start developing that. That's why I go out to Will Shipley. I'm not saying Will Shipley is going to be Saquon Barkley, but you use him to complement with Barkley in order to take some of those carries off and then give him a little bit more. So it's supposed to. So you don't necessarily need one person having all those rushing yards, say 2-3 years. You distribute it so that you get the production out of 2-3 people. In terms of almost money ball in a way.
You got to money ball it. Nice. I love a money ball reference. I love that movie, by the way.
It's great. It's great.
Zander's not a movie guy. Moneyball, put that on your list.
We're making a movie list for Big Z in the offseason. I'll watch it. Chris, what do you think of what that game yesterday mean for Nick Sirianni, man? I think Nick Sirianni and Jalen are kind of similar, just in that, I don't know. John tells me maybe it's just because I got my Eagle glasses on or I'm so focused on the Eagles, but it feels like those two guys are criticized a lot in the national media and by, from the NFL world as a whole, for whatever reason. Nick's antics, Jalen's arms,
by the way,
whatever it might be.
I'll just add, coaches, they get shat upon everywhere. Everywhere.
They do, but Nick, there's definitely a little bit of an extra hate, I think, for Nick Sirianni, maybe because of some of the stuff that he's done. But what'd you think yesterday meant for him, man? And now 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. He's now inevitable. You can't dispute it, can't deny it. He is successful. That's for sure.
This arc reminds me a lot. I think when he first retired and a couple years into it, he reminded me a lot of Dick Vermeil. And just I wasn't around for Dick Vermeil, but when you read all the stuff, you hear everybody talking about him, how it was so passionate, so fiery, and you saw the success they continually used to gradually get better and better and better as it went along. And it just reminds you, it just keeps winning. You hope that he and Vermeil don't have the same fate in New Orleans. You hope that doesn't happen again. But you look at the way that the players react to him, the way that he's been able to continually win. Did he make decisions early this year that have you question like, what are you doing? Yeah, it's sort of like, the thing is, he learned from them, and you don't see him making the same thing. Like, I look at the Atlanta game, look at the way that team came out against the Buccaneers, and some of those decisions made. Yeah, there are some things you do. You're really question like, why are you doing this? But you look at the overall picture and how not only you're getting your young players to develop, you're getting the most out of your talent. You're in a position now where you've been to the playoffs each of the years you've been in the league. The Eagles got one, but the Eagles have one of the best coaches. The Eagles have one of the best coaches in the league. They really do. And to the point where you're starting to think like, okay, I think he's on a level par with Vermeil in terms of like Andy Reid. I still think is his franchise's best head coach over time. Now, if you want to go back to the 48, 49s or what have you, and say, Reese Neal or whatever,
we're going to leave that to Ray. We're not going to go back that far. I'd say Super Bowl era. This is by far, Chris, the best era of Eagles football ever in the Super Bowl era.
Oh yeah, definitely by far. This is like, because how many times we saw, okay, they had the Super Bowl, they want to go to the Super Bowl, they may go to the playoffs following, and there's a stretch of nothingness. Look at this team. Consistently, they're in a position where it should be. The team last year should have been in this position the way they started, and until they had that collapse. So if you figure that, this really should be 3 years. You should be in the talks of being a Super Bowl contender. There have been talks of them being a Super Bowl contender. In 2 of those years, you actually made the Super Bowl. And that's impressive.
I said it last night on our post-game show. I'm going to say it again. I started covering this team on a daily basis in 2016. What year were you, Chris?
2020.
2020. So even Chris, more than me, is responsible. He's the good luck charm. He's the good luck charm because this team keeps winning and winning and winning and winning. But to Zander's point, by the way, you won't have to look nationally, because if they don't finish the job, there will be plenty of people in our chat shitting on Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. That's just part of it.
I'm saying, win or lose, he deserves an extension.
Oh, no doubt.
Win or lose. Well, you know what's going to happen if they lose. Why are you here?
Yeah.
Get over it.
Hey, there are a ton of people wanted him run out last year. They're hiding now. They don't bring it up.
But John, that's a little unfair to say, because wasn't the owner thinking about it, for crying out loud?
Well, yeah. Jeffrey Lurie is.
Yeah. So, I mean, come on. That wasn't just a fan thing.
No, because I blame Jeffrey Lurie for it too. So I'll blame them both.
All right, that's fine. As long as you're going to blame Lurie too, then I'm good with it.
Yeah. He would. Hey, Jeffrey's like everybody else. This organization is great. It's one of the best in the NFL. I think you see that on a year-to-year basis. But there's one thing that all 32 have in common, and that's when you don't meet expectations, somebody's got to pay. There's got to be a scapegoat. Last year was Brian Johnson. It was Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, group. Doesn't matter. This year in Houston, it's Bobby Slowick. The same year, Bobby's getting head coaching interviews. He's fired when they get better. Somebody's got to pay, Chris. Yeah. Nature of the NFL.
Slowick. Well, I didn't get the whole hype behind him before. Like, he's one of the guys who's like, okay, this Stroud made him look good, but then it's like, wait.
I always find it amusing when guys. That happened to Brian Johnson last year. He got head coaching interviews and he got fired. I always find that amusing.
He's part of a trio. Him, Clint Kubiak, and somehow new head coach Brian Schottenheimer. The three of them, it's like the Steel Family Guys quote where you talk about where Chris Griffin comes out for that. How do they keep getting work? It's one of those things now too. They keep it's like somebody hired, they always get hired. And you look at it, it's like, we expect them to do
Wow.
really great. And they finish where you expect them to do, and then they get a job somewhere else. And
Let me
recycle.
add a little secret that's not a secret at all. Nepotism is a big thing in professional football.
It
When you
is.
talk about Schottenheimer and Kubiak, that answers your question right there.
Sure. Well, I thought Chris Shula
Shula,
would be good. Well, Chris Shula actually think it's could be legit, but most of the Shulas.
yeah. Nepo babies abound in the NFL. At C. Franklin News, make sure you follow Chris. He's done it on his own. No nepotism there. One of the best in the business, NJ.com. Good enough to come on and talk Eagles. We still got to go. It keeps going for us, Chris. We still got 2 more weeks, man. Super Bowl again.
It's a sacrifice I'm willing to it's fun. I love more to actually, instead of like having to cover afar, like seeing a team you don't normally cover, to actually know what's going on, know the team that's happening, just going to be in there. Yeah, it makes it a little bit more.
No doubt about it. Chris, thank you for joining, man. We appreciate it. Great as always. And hopefully we'll talk to you at least one more time here before this big Super Bowl 59, brother. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Y'all have a good one now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Franklin joining us here on Birds 365. Great show today, Johnny Mac. Got 5 or so minutes left, and I'm going to stick on, by the way. I'll be doing giveaways and stuff after the show today. So make sure everybody, if you're in the chat and you're not a member, get your memberships in. We'll be doing some giveaways on the chat. Good to see everybody in here. Don't forget to smash that like button for us, all right? I don't know where we're at right now, but we have good amount of people watching the show. Almost 2,000 on every platform. I think we have up to almost 1,000 on YouTube. So big thanks to all you guys. Hit that like button. John, one other thing I want to ask you about on today's show is Jalen Hurts made a comment after the game about taking off the straitjacket. What did you take? What did you make of that comment?
Yeah, he's dropped those hints a few times.
I thought it was a little, maybe a little not vindication, but you've been saying kind of what they've been doing, and I thought Jalen kind of tipped his cap there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, or it should be pretty obvious, that they had become very risk averse, and they took some shots yesterday. And it's a fine line. They haven't been turning the football over. They still didn't turn it over. So when you're walking that tightrope and you're getting explosive plays and taking care of the football, that's the best of both worlds. And kind of yesterday is the version of the Eagles offense everybody thought they were going to see. But again, I think people forget Jalen drops those sort of, what do you want to call them, Easter eggs a lot, where he says, some of that backhanded stuff, straitjacket, talked about sometimes it's not always my decision, blah, blah. He's done it quite a bit this season. I think that's the most misunderstood thing of all. Jalen Hurts believes the passing game has to get better, just like people like me believes the passing game needs to get better. Now, he'll also say, his standard is to win no matter what. So, but you'd like to have the best of both worlds. Yesterday, they had the best of both worlds.
John, this is what I love about Jalen, and I said it yesterday. I really believe he practices what he preaches, and this is the finest example of it, John. Not many quarterbacks, would be willing to probably sacrifice personal stats and accolades and some of those things if his coach asked him to. And I think he did and was willing to do it. And that's why he always says, I keep the main thing.
Not only coaches, not only quarterbacks, coaches. I go back to 2 guys, John Gruden in Tampa, who won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's defense and one of the great defenses of the modern era, and Brad Johnson playing quarterback, and was miserable because he didn't have the explosive passing game. And Brian Billick in Baltimore, maybe the best of the modern defenses, with Trent Dilfer. And the next season, he went out and got Elvis Gerbach, who threw for like 3,500 yards. I don't know the exact number, and they weren't as good. It's not just quarterbacks, it's coaches as well. And because think, John Gruden, Brian Billick, offensive guys, they don't want to sit around and not be able to move the football. So it's easy to say the standard is to win, but when you win ugly, it eats at people, as funny as that sounds. And the Eagles didn't win ugly yesterday. So, I guess he let me out of my straitjacket a little bit today, is the exact quote you're talking about. Now,
Yeah.
I think part of that is facetious and taking shots at people who says he can't throw the football.
Yeah, I agree.
But on the other hand, there's a little bit of truth in that, see, I can throw the football if I'm allowed to throw the football.
Yeah, and I think it's a credit to him though, man. He does, like I said, he practices what he preaches. He tells you all he cares about is winning. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing to embody that with the way you play, end up with 2,900 passing yards and have a bunch of people criticizing you. But look, here he is, John, dancing his way to a Super Bowl, second one in 3 years. So pretty impressive stuff, Johnny Mac. That's going to do it for at least the first 2 hours of Birds 365. I'll keep going with everybody. I'll take some comments from the great people. I'll make sure I read every super chat. Let me check, make sure we got all of our super chats here. I'll read one more to you. AJ Jones, Kellen wants to leave, and I understand his dreams of being a head coach. It's way early, but who would be a good fit, in your opinion, for our new OC if he leaves? He is supposed to interview with the Saints this week.
Yeah, I think he'll be back, to be honest, but I don't think he'll get the Saints job. But he certainly wants to be a head coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. For all the people that want to pile on, everybody has ambition, and if you don't, there's different stages of life. Vic has been through it; he doesn't want to do it anymore, and that's nice to have. But he's 66 years old. Kellen's a very young man. Wants an opportunity, just like Nick Sirianni, just like Shane Steichen, just like Jonathan Gannon. And remember, when things, as I just pointed out with the scapegoat, when things don't go well, they're going to fire your ass. And Kellen Moore had 3 number 1 offenses in Dallas and got fired.
Yep.
He got fired because Brandon Staley was a lame duck and with the Chargers, essentially fired. So don't blame these guys when they go for that. But I think Nick is back into good graces, and I think the sense thing to do would just to elevate Kevin Patullo as the closest person on the coaching staff to Nick Sirianni. Those two that's been his right-hand man since day one, for people that don't know.
Yeah.
And now that he has this sort of gravitas, I think he can just move in the direction that he wants to move. But we'll see. He might be.
I think they'd go outside, John. Last time they went inside, they collapsed and it didn't work out. The 2 times they went outside, it worked.
Well, I don't. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just saying, first year with Kellen Moore, after Brian Johnson, and they're in the Super Bowl again.
I
know Brian was a scapegoat. I'm not trying to blame Brian.
Technically, their offense was better last year than this year. Brian Johnson had the
matters, John, and they're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I wrote about this, and it bothers me partially because I like Brian, and I admit that.
I do too.
They're the number 8 offense in the NFL, and he didn't have Saquon Barkley, and he didn't have the number 1 defense, and he still put together the number 8 offense in the NFL. This year, they had the number 8 offense with Saquon Barkley, with the number 1 defense. Helping, to me, yeah, I don't agree with that sentiment, but that, and again, they might go outside the organization. Kevin Patullo, he might be so important to Nick that he doesn't want him bogged down,
right? Maybe
into that,
maybe,
and that changes but if they want to go in that direction, I think he has the power to do it now. I don't think he had the power to do it last season.
That makes sense. I see exactly what you're saying. Johnny Mac, great stuff today, man. Great show as always. Your final thoughts as we now, John, will gear up for a 2-week run to the Super Bowl. And we are coming off a historic NFC Championship game where the team put up 55 points. Your final thoughts on today's show, brother?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, that's a good word for it. In so many different directions with Saquon Barkley, his historic season. Nick Sirianni, I kind of said, first coach in first 4 years, 2 Super Bowl bursts, 4 playoff first in the Super Bowl era. So many firsts. This has been a historic team, an historic season, and they got one more hurdle, and it's the biggest hurdle of all, to stop the dynasty, to stop Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Man, that's what you live for. Biggest moment, biggest stage, biggest team. Go beat them. Go beat them.
Going back, the rematch is upon us. It's no more speculation. It is here, and I am ready for it. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. We appreciate it. All of JAKIB Nation appreciates you. Great work yesterday covering the game and here this morning on Birds 365. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. All right, brother?
All right. See you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Johnny Mac. There's John McMullen here on Birds 365. Excellent job by Johnny Mac yesterday covering the game. Excellent job today on the show. Love listening to Johnny Mac talk football.